See what I got here.
Did say he's coming. We have 7 members voting tonight, okay? And we're live.
7 members voting, and we're live. Okay. How are you? Call the meeting of the Planning Board in order. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act of 1975, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided. If any member has reason to believe this meeting is being held in violation of this act, they should state so at this time. Pledge of Allegiance. Would everyone silence their phones, please, if you haven't done so already? Karen, roll call.
Yes. Mr. Becerra? Mr. Jones?
Here?
Mr. Crowley? Mr. Gorgone? Mayor Mullick?
He's right up there.
He's here.
Okay.
He's here.
Watching from above.
Councilmember Yeager?
Here.
Mrs. Reed?
Here.
Mr. Lundholm? Mr. Malloy? Mr. Paducis?
Here.
Mayor Mullick? Here. Thank you.
Pardon me. Could we have one resolution, Resolution 06-13-2023:1, Master Plan Consistency Review of the Historic Preservation Commission, 186 property reports of structures according to 525-36C of the City of Cape May Code and associated with the Cape May Historic District Survey Grant, HE 20-003. Is there a motion to approve?
I make the motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Was that Mr. Yeager, Councilmember Yeager? I'm sorry, yes? Thank you very much. We have a motion by Mrs. Reed, seconded by Councilmember Yeager. Mr. Gorgone?
Abstain.
Mayor Mullick?
Yes.
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Mrs. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Crowley? Mr. Paducis?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Thank you.
We have minutes of May 23rd, 2023. Is there a motion to approve? Move.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Crowley, seconded by Mrs. Reed. Mr. Crowley?
Aye.
Thank you. Mrs. Reed?
Yes.
Councilmember Yeager?
Abstain.
Mayor Mullick?
Yes.
Mr. Gorgone?
Abstain.
Mr. Malloy? I'm sorry, Mr. Paducis?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Thank you.
We have one application this evening, Mahalo Cape May LLC, 1033 Beach Avenue, Block 1101, Lot 1. Mr. Nemad, you ready to roll?
Please turn on your mic. Please turn on your microphone. And if you move, carry it with you. Thank you very much. Just press the button.
I think I can.
Thank you.
How
We
am I
are
doing
live
now?
streaming. We're live streaming.
Okay, great. Good. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Mayor, council members of the board. For the record, Stephen Nemad, a member of the firm of Nemad, Davis, and Goldstein, appearing on behalf of the applicant Mahalo Cape May LLC, who is here this evening in the person of Mr. Eustace Mita, who's seated behind me, who is the sole principal and owner of the company, of the limited liability company. The property, of course, which is the subject of this application, is the former Capri Motel, which is located, as you all know, at Beach Avenue and Madison Avenue. Mr. Mita and his company bought the property immediately before last summer, and we're here tonight for some very limited site improvements, which are part of one of the most extraordinary property renovations I've seen. You'll hear momentarily about it from Mr. Mita. But what brings us here are 3 site improvements, which are really a minor part of this renovation project, which, as I say, is one of the most extraordinary that I've seen. And that is a bit of a pool deck expansion right now. There is concrete, shuffleboard, and other concrete areas adjacent to the existing pool deck. We're going to proposing to remove that, expand the pool deck. It's an insignificant decrease in impervious coverage, as you'll hear momentarily. That's number one. Number two, we're proposing to put a pergola over the pool, which is very aesthetically pleasing, and it will have a water feature with it as well, as you'll hear momentarily from our engineer and architect, Mr. Halbrunner. And lastly, we're proposing to replace the existing freestanding sign, which is located in the exact location that it is today that you see at the very corner. We appeared before the HPC last night. I wasn't there, my client was. There's only one modification, the sign. They approved the sign dimensions, location. The only thing they asked, and we would ask that our application be modified accordingly, is that rather than be internally illuminated, they want the sign to be a wood look, a sandblasted wood, and want it to be externally uplit. And we're, of course, agreeable to doing that, would be agreeable to doing that. We would ask that and you'll hear momentarily from Mr. Halbrunner, that we are hereby asking to amend our application consistent with that, so that rather than have an internally illuminated sign, it would be of a wood type, presumably a sandblasted wood, that would be uplit externally. And the sign size we're reducing slightly. I think it's 38 square feet. We're reducing it to 32 square feet. The variances we seek are chiefly occasioned by the existing conditions. The existing pool location, obviously it's there, and we had to keep it in that location. The existing sign is there. These are all existing conditions, so that the variance relief, and you'll hear it spelled out momentarily from Mr. Halbrunner in some brief testimony, is occasioned by the fact that there's an unusual condition, really a hardship caused because we had to deal with the pool location existing where it is. It also has some flexible C criteria or characteristics of the variances we seek, in that this renovation, we believe, and we respectfully will submit to you, will most definitely aesthetically enhance this property. And as you all know, to aesthetically enhance properties through what the statute refers to as creative development techniques and good civic design and arrangement is one of the very purposes of zoning, so that we have both attributes of hardship, and which is the C1 basis for variance relief, and the C2, which is the flexible C criteria, because we believe overwhelmingly that the purposes of zoning will be advanced in this undertaking. What I'd like to do, Mr. Chairman, we have two brief witnesses, Mr. Mita first, which he's going to explain to you what has been done at the property, then Mr. Halbrunner, who will explain the limited site improvements that bring us here tonight. Should we swear them both, counsel, at this time?
Yeah, they need to come up to the microphone.
Sure. Gentlemen, why don't you come up and be sworn? Eustace Mita and John Halbrunner.
We're also going to swear in our board engineer,
Good.
Craig Hurlis. Do each of you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
I do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, can we invite you to sit if you'd like? But you're welcome to stand. But you're welcome to sit.
Prefer to stand.
Okay. Okay, I just wanted to make the offer.
Mr. Mita,
Thank you.
can stand or
Yeah.
sit.
Okay.
Your prerogative.
Can I put the exhibits up, Steve? Okay.
Sure.
And Mr. Nemad, you're going to need your own microphone if you guys are going to stand up.
Okay.
Let's start with the room instead. Thanks.
Can you remember to leave, if these
How about
exhibits are not
modern
part?
times?
All right, we'll start with this. We'll start with this.
Yeah, right?
I guess you think better on your feet.
Before you.
I do, exactly right. I can't speak sitting down, right?
I think Steve's really trying to get us to hurry this up, so.
Your full name, sir, for the record.
Eustace Mita,
And
Eustace Mita, M-I-T-A.
And Mr. Mita, you are the principal in Mahalo Cape May LLC?
I am.
And you're the sole principal, you're sole owner, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you and your company have acquired the property, which is the former Capri Motel, which is the subject of this application. You acquired it before the summer of 2022, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, Mr. Mita, tell us, you obviously, you have the Icona Hotel chain, correct?
Correct.
And you are seeking to incorporate this property into that hotel chain, correct?
Correct.
Tell us the program, before we get to the site improvements, tell us what you've done from last summer to now in the renovation program that you've undertaken at the property.
Yeah. So to begin, first of all, I want to thank the board. Always appreciate being here, and Mayor, thank you very much. And I'm thrilled. I can't remember a time where we were the only item on the agenda, so we'll try to make this as painless as possible for everybody. But we're very excited for a number of reasons. The first thing is this is our Mahalo brand. Icona is a high-end luxury brand. Mahalo is our select service brand. But our belief was, and particularly here in Cape May, if you look at where our other brands are too, from here in Cape May County, except for in Spring Lake as well, is that, we just love the whole motif of Cape May. And if you look at the old Capri, it really was nondescript. I'm not sure.
1 second, this is Exhibit A1.
Oh, thank
That's
you.
an aerial of the old property, correct?
Excuse
Yes.
me,
Okay, go ahead.
May I ask, are these exhibits part of the application?
They are now. That
It's
we're
marked at
marking.
A1.
Okay. Will you make sure to leave one set of exhibits with me for the record? for
By
the
all
file?
means. By all means.
Very much. Thank
Whatever
you.
your desire is, we'll do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So what we're looking at here is an aerial view, which really doesn't do it as much justice as if we brought it down a little bit. But as you can see, and this is just the way we operate as a company, we put the beauty of the property before the expense. For example, we didn't need a new roof, but it wouldn't have matched the motif that we were going for. So you can see from the roof down to the foundation, we've replaced everything in place without touching the building envelope. For example, if you look at the railings and you look up here, you just see a little Y there on the column. Here, to give it what we call a Cape May coastal look,
A2.
I'm sorry, Exhibit A2, and this is a new look. To give it what we call Cape May coastal look, you can see the vents that we've put all across there, and it just gives it that more seashore coastal look. In addition to that, if you look at, again, the coastal look with the railings here, much higher expense, not sure it does anything for the property in terms of getting a higher rate for the rooms. However, it certainly does give it that look that we wanted to, that we believe is consistent with Cape May. The other thing is all new windows throughout the whole property. Every window that you see here is new. All across, it's hard to see in there. It had old, what we call, even though the property was older, it had more modern doors, what's called a raised panel here. More of the seashore style is what we call a recess panel. So even down to the doors recess panel, we took what were all keyed doors, so everyone had to come in the lobby and get a key, and now we have the electronic where you just swipe it. So every little detail that you can think of. The pool is all brand new, but we replaced it in place, once again, not increasing the footprint one bit. What we're coming here tonight, though, to ask for, as you can see, is to ask for an expanded deck, and without an increase in impervious, we're actually going to have a decrease because we're taking out the two shuffleboards there. And John will get into that a little bit later on. The landscaping is being done now. Oh, the other thing we wanted to point out, if you look here, you can see that the door was not ADA compliant. You could only fit one person in that door. We replaced that with the Stanley automatic opening doors, that way. And this doesn't show, but this now became an ADA ramp. We didn't have to do that because we were grandfathered in, but we try to do everything we can to improve the property. So very excited about the property, very excited about the location, and we took it down to the studs. I'd like to, if you don't mind, show this is the old interior, and when I tell you the picture doesn't do it justice, I mean it doesn't look as good as that picture makes it look. This is the new interior, and we're very fortunate and blessed in that we have our own in-house design company as well. It's called Interiors by Joanne, and we do work for other hotels and motels. But our whole concept here is there's certain, I'm sorry, yes, this is Exhibit A4, Exhibit A4.
That's the new redone room, correct?
Yes, A4 is the new redone room.
And A3 is the old room.
A3 is the old room. And we're opening this Friday, so what you see here is already in place. And again, keeping in what we call like the Cape May coastal look, this is a driftwood, that's a driftwood motif. Again, when we build or we redo a hotel, we believe in the forever concept, meaning if you came to Cape May 150 years ago, and Mayor knows this by his own properties, you'd see the recessed panel doors. And we believe 50 years from now, regardless of technology, these will still be the right look and they'll still be in. You see, the detail here is subway tile. Subway tile was in 100 years ago. Yes, there's a lot different tiles today, but we believe subway tile is going to be in vogue 100 years from now, and that's a glass subway tile. So the same thing with the motif here. You'll see like the Venetian, if you remember, this is the way all the old doors were, and but they had air that would come in and breathe. So that's the new motif, and our belief was that there's a certain some guests choose hotels, and some guests choose motels. It doesn't make one better than the other. It's just what the preference is. And our belief was that if we brought a higher end room to the motel side, the select side of the business, that the people in Cape May would appreciate it. And we have found that. We've already found that. We're ahead in bookings for this year from when it was a Capri. So we're very excited about it. As you can tell, this is old. I'm not trying to insult anybody. We had chocolate carpet in our home at one time too, but at the seashore, this isn't really the motif, the dark brown. This is more lighter colors, more open and airy. So I think
You have
that's about it.
45 rooms total here,
We do. We have 45 rooms, which include 3 townhomes.
and you have a mix of efficiencies, suites, and townhomes, correct?
That's correct.
And in every unit, as I understand it, having just seen the property, everything was gutted. New sheetrock, new bathrooms, new windows. It was down to the studs, correct?
Correct. And our belief, the reason that we did that was you can't get out mold and mildew just by spraying or painting on sheetrock. So we literally took all the sheetrock out. In fact, our whole electric system is new and upgraded. But we go right down to the studs, and in a lot of areas in the hotel, we replace the studs, where we see little chips and so on. So we took it down to the studs, down to the cement.
And all that work was done from between the closing of last summer and today?
That is correct.
Okay, and we're here tonight, obviously, for the site improvements, which are, Mr. Halbrunner will explain, which is a slight increase in the pool deck, which will just minimally reduce impervious coverage.
Right.
The new sign and the...
Increase in deck, but lower impervious coverage,
Okay,
yes.
thank you very much, Mr. Mita. Any
Thank you.
questions from the board?
I just have one question.
Sure.
Each unit of the 45 one-bedroom?
No, we have a number of suites, and we have 3 townhomes, which, Mr. Crowley, they're like 2,500 square feet. They're very big, very big.
They're 3-bedroom, each one.
3-bedroom.
Now, that's part of the 45?
Yes, and they're in let me just get that other. You can't tell, but they're all back here. These are actually townhomes, 3 townhomes back here, 1, 2, 3, and they're 2 stories.
And they each have 3 bedrooms?
They do, yes, sir. And then up here, we call this our ocean suite. Up here, it has 2 beds in it, but it's 1 big bedroom with incredible views of the ocean.
We'd invite you all to come see it. It's extraordinary what's...
We're going to have a grand opening. The mayor's going to be there to cut the ribbon in about a month, so we want everybody, seriously, we'll invite everybody on council and so on. It's that big of a
hopes.
change. Yeah.
I'll be there.
Thank you. Thanks, Your Honor.
Okay, any other questions of Mr. Mita? Thank you, Mr.
Thank you
Halbrunner.
very much.
Would you come forward? Oh, he's behind me. Full name for the record, please.
Sure. John Halbrunner, Halbrunner.
Mr. Halbrunner, you're a registered architect and a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you're licensed in both disciplines, correct?
That is correct.
And have
That's
you
correct.
qualified as an expert before planning and zoning boards throughout the state of New Jersey?
I have, in fact, yes, for the past 30 years.
Okay, and you've been before this board and this community zoning board as well in your chosen disciplines,
I
correct?
have, yes.
Or from as an expert, Mr. Chairman, I don't know. Yep. Thank you very much. Mr. Halbrunner, would you tell the members of the board what your role has been in this application?
Sure. Our role was to perform the surveying and site engineering services along for the project's renovation.
Okay, and why don't you explain the limited site improvements that bring us here, which I alluded to in my opening remarks.
There are, as you indicated, really three. There's the expansion of the pool deck, 15 feet wider. In the colored exhibit, you'll see it's a more tan color than the white color. Simply taking the existing pool patio that's there and extending it 15 feet northwardly. And with that, constructing a new handicap ramp to the pool facility, replacing the sign at the corner of Madison and Beach Avenue. And then the third item is this pergola going over top the pool, shown best in this rendering here. It's more than just a pergola. It actually has a water feature. It'll be a very
Why don't you show
noticeable-
it, John?
Yes. This is the pergola issue that I'm talking about. You can see the cascading waterfall. Replacing the existing sign, and again, the back 15 feet that's shown in this rendering would be an expanded patio from what exists.
Okay,
Along with
let's,
that, some enhanced landscaping around the perimeter of the pool patio.
okay, let's talk about the pool deck expansion first. We actually are slightly, very slightly reducing coverage. Is that correct?
Correct.
Explain how we arrive at the reduced coverage. What yields reduced coverage when we're actually going to expand the deck a little bit?
In the area where the expansion is taking place, there's currently a shuffleboard court and darker green in this exhibit, which is Exhibit A5, which is the colored rendering of the site plan. Those darker green patches and a shuffleboard court that's not very visible in this are all being removed. The equivalent area that we removed is basically being put back into the patio. There's a net decrease in square footage for the entire site of like 25 square feet, so a de minimis decrease.
Okay.
But most importantly, there's not an increase as a result of
Your
the,
plan indicates the existing impervious coverage is 77.14, and this is 77.08%, correct?
that's correct.
So it's a de minimis or an insignificant decrease in coverage.
Correct.
Okay, let's talk about the freestanding sign. Is it being proposed in the same location?
Yes, it is in the same location, and again, it probably shows better in this 3D rendering aerial here. The existing sign, in the same location as the proposed sign, the sign itself will be reconstructed and actually made slightly smaller in total area.
Okay, and that sign has an area, what is the area of the existing freestanding sign?
Just shy of 38 square feet,
And we're reducing that to what?
32 square feet.
And the existing sign has a 0-foot setback. It's right at the corner.
Correct, and we're proposing to maintain that.
Okay, and we're reducing the square footage from 37.85, your plan shows,
Correct, down to
to
32.
32 square feet.
That is correct, about a 15% decrease in size.
And you've learned today that the HPC last night granted conceptual approval of the sign on the condition that the location and the size can remain where it is, but it has to be of a wood material. It's like a sandblasted wood, and rather than be internally illuminated, it has to be externally illuminated or uplit.
Correct. The plans as submitted indicate there was going to be an internally lit. As Mr. Niemann has explained now, that is no longer the case. It'll be a wood or wood-like sign externally lit.
And you and your client are agreeable to submitting a resolution compliance plan set to the board, which will show the revised plan.
Absolutely.
We'll also go back to the HPC for final approval with.
Absolutely.
Mr. Halberner, before I write down wood or wood-like, I just want to make sure that the HPC that had it say it had to be wood or wood-like, because I don't want to have a.
I wasn't there, but your secretary told me she listened to the, Karen, you told me you listened
It's
to the tape?
wood.
It's wood, so
Yeah.
I just don't want to, so are you going to do a wood sign?
Yes. If that's what they said, I wasn't there,
Whatever the HP says is what you're going to do.
was
We
exactly
will
right.
be compliant with HPC. The applicant would like to, upon return of the HPC, inquire about the ability to use a wood-like material.
I just don't want to prove something inconsistent with what they said, and if I say wood or wood-like, then they'll get upset that I said something. So I'm going to say wood unless otherwise approved by the HPC.
HPC.
That's
Okay.
fine. Thank
All
you,
right,
Mr. King.
Sorry for that confusion.
As you all know, board members, there's a material that looks, I've used it in many, many applications for clients. It looks just like a sandblasted wood. You can't tell it from the ground, but it's of a mixture of a synthetic material that has a mixture of wood and some other thing that doesn't, material that doesn't rot and et cetera, like wood does, and doesn't require maintenance as frequently as wood. Whatever the HPC wants is what we will do. On that sign. And we'll find out what that is, and that's what we'll submit on the resolution compliance plan set. So the freestanding sign setback is required, obviously, by ordinance to be 20 feet. The existing is 0 feet. It's right at the corner, right?
Correct.
And that's where it always has been.
Has been and will be.
Okay, and the sign frame width, to explain the variance we're requesting there?
Yes, the ordinance requires or allows up to a maximum 5-foot sign width. We're proposing a sign width that is 8 feet. So while we're reducing the area, we are looking to increase the width of the sign to 8 feet. What it does is it keeps the proportion of the sign a little more in scale with the building. And do we have a rendering of the existing signs? Or should I pass one out to compare?
Have you taken a look at this size, how we compare with the size of other signs for hotel properties, similar hotel motel properties along Beach Avenue?
I have, yes. So now it might be a good time to introduce Exhibit A6. in which
Wait
we can
one
talk about
second.
that,
I
and-
think we didn't identify these exhibits. For the record, Mr. King, the rendered site plan is Exhibit A5 that the witness spoke from, and I think that's the only.
The other side, I wrote down A5.
Thank you very much. All right, wait a second until everybody has one.
A6.
This is A6, correct. And before I jump into the comparison in the neighborhood, if you turn to the next to the last page on Exhibit A6, you'll see a dimensioned diagram of the existing sign. So we're talking about the size of a new sign requiring a variance. I think it's helpful to put in context of the sign that we are replacing. The sign that we are replacing, which is some 38 square feet, is really 4 different signs arranged on a post. And the proportion of it is not nearly as aesthetic as what we're proposing to do. And despite the fact that we're looking for a sign width variance, we're reducing the area, and this is going to be far more compatible with the neighborhood than the existing sign shown on the 3rd page of A6.
And what did your survey of sign sizes along Beach Avenue for similar hotel and motel properties reveal?
Yeah, I look at from Pittsburgh Avenue down to Madison Avenue, which is the motel zone along the strip of Beach Avenue, and I looked at each property that had a freestanding sign. I did not hard measure each one. I'm giving you estimates of the size. So don't take my numbers as absolute, but they're very close approximations. Mostly just to see the sign that or to demonstrate that the sign we're proposing is consistent with that along that entire strip. There are a total of 11 signs, or 11 properties with freestanding signs between Pittsburgh and Madison Avenue. The average size is about 35 square feet of all those signs. And there are 73%, or 8 of them, that have widths in excess of the maximum 5-foot width. So what we're proposing is entirely consistent with what happens along the entire C3 zoning district strip along Beach Avenue.
Okay, so that the variances that we're seeking for the pool setback requires a 20-foot setback. It's existing at 15.73 feet and 20.55 feet, correct?
Correct.
So that's an existing non-conforming condition.
It is.
We're not proposing to change or modify that or exacerbate it in any way.
No, the pool will stay in exactly the same location as it is today.
How about the pergola setback? Is that,
The pergola is proposing a setback of, my memory says 14.86 feet. And I refer to,
and that is within the pool area? Pool-
correct, that's in between the edge of the current pool and the edge of the pool patio along the Madison Avenue side.
Okay, and we need a variance, obviously, for lot coverage. We're slightly reducing it.
Correct.
Existing condition, we talked about the freestanding sign. 20 square feet is the maximum by ordinance in this zone, correct?
Correct.
And we're proposing to reduce almost a 38 square foot sign to 32 square feet
That is also correct.
per side. Okay. And the freestanding sign setback, 20 feet is required. It's existing right at the corner. And
That is
it has
correct.
been historically that way for many years?
It has, yes. In
Okay,
fact,
we're proposing to maintain that. Now, obviously, this plan of renovation, in your opinion as a designer, a civil engineer, an architect, do you believe that this will advance one or more purposes of the New Jersey Municipal Land Use Act? And if so, why?
Absolutely. First of all, as you mentioned earlier, the aesthetic enhancement to the site, to the neighborhood, as a result of the improvements comprehensively, not just the waterfall pergola, not just the patio expansion, but comprehensively, the aesthetic increase to the streetscape of the neighborhood is immeasurable. It is significant, and it is clearly going to benefit the community and result in a better streetscape, and thus advancing one of the purposes of the municipal land use law, which is to create better streetscape through creative development techniques.
More desirable visual environment, correct? Okay, and we also have to deal, as you know, and as the board's well aware, with the negative criteria, which is that the variances can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without substantially impairing the intent and purpose of the zone plan and the zoning ordinance. I emphasize the word substantially because that's what the New Jersey Supreme Court word says that we have to emphasize. Do you see any negative impacts either to the property itself or to any surrounding properties through the variance relief we're here requesting?
Absolutely not. If you look at each of the variances that we're requesting, we can take it each in turn. The potential negative effect that might normally result from a front yard setback encroachment. We're seeking a front yard setback encroachment for the pool patio expansion and for the pergola. Things that might normally be adversely affected by such a variance would be light, air, and open space, detracting from the streetscape, and imposing upon view corridors. None of those potential negative effects are happening with this instant application. So clearly, in terms of the potential negative effects for granting the front yard setback variance, there is no negative, let alone a substantial negative impact.
Okay, and this is part of a total program of renovation that includes, as Mr. Mita pointed out, a new roof, new siding, new windows, every room having new sheetrock, new bathrooms, et cetera. You're aware of that?
I am, yes. And in fact, don't underscore or understate the importance of providing handicap access to the pool, which is something that does not presently exist. That's certainly promoting the general welfare for the public.
Thank you very much. Nothing further, Mr. Chairman. Move all the exhibits and evidence, and nothing further at this time.
Can I ask you one question? As you may know, it's my practice to take the chart from our engineer's report and incorporate it into the resolution so that it kind of flows through. And usually, I listen carefully for any changes or deviations from the chart, but you gave a lot of numbers, and I just wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity to review Mr. Hurlis's chart, and that those numbers are consistent with your expectations for the variances you're seeking.
I think there was one number I didn't quite understand, but it doesn't affect the variances. It affected the existing conditions. I think you showed an existing setback to the pergola. The pergola doesn't exist, so there is no existing setback number.
Okay, where is that on the chart?
I'm going from my memory, bear with me.
It's at the page.
Call that out as accessory pool/pergola on Madison Avenue. So the existing condition is measured to the pool, which is 12.78, which is taken right off your plan.
Okay.
And then the double asterisk in the proposed section is measured to the pergola.
Okay.
At this location, right, Craig? Yes. Okay. So it is accurate, Mr. King, in all regards.
That's fine. Just I do that every time, so
worries.
everybody sees the same thing from beginning to end. Okay.
Any members of the board have any questions?
Yeah, speaking of,
Go ahead.
yeah, I did, just to look through the numbers, I'm a little confused on one thing. On this document, which we got from you folks, it's the authorization under permit by Rule 6. Item number 6, you indicate that the proposed coverage is 28,360. And on the plans we got, you indicate that the coverage was 28,350.
The difference of 10 square feet.
Yeah.
And I'm going to suppose, I don't have those numbers, those calculations in front of me, but I'm going to suppose that the permit by rule document you're looking at was prepared as the plans were being finalized, and there ended up being a 10 square foot difference as the design was finalized. It doesn't negate the validity of the permit by rule description or the numbers that we are presenting in terms of lot coverage on the site plan are the numbers that I am holding as accurate today and representing to you are the final numbers.
We're going to have the additional approvals in our conditions anyway, so if that is a problem for whatever administrative body reviews such things, they'll have to deal with that with them. What we're approving is, if we approve it, is the 60. And if that deviation is a problem with the DEP or whomever reviews such things, then they'll have to deal with that. But we're going to be conditioned on them getting all necessary additional approvals. Okay?
Okay, but I only bring it up because the number is involved in the discussion of lot coverage.
Right, but our discussion on lot coverage is on the 1260 number, not on whatever they showed the DEP.
And
Right.
for, and for clarification,
Is that correct?
even if it were the 60 number, it's 10 square feet more, it's still a reduction from the existing of 28,374 square feet.
It's 15 feet instead of 25.
Okay.
Okay? All right.
Any other questions from?
Yeah, I did have one more question, and it comes into my head only because of some previous testimony here. Is the parking space allocation accurate if 3 of these townhouses have 3 sleeping areas each? That would-
It's all in existing condition. We're not modifying any parking.
Okay, yeah, I know you're not modifying any parking, but
But are you modifying the number of rooms?
No, bedrooms,
Or what is it, Craig? What's the right phraseology for the parking? What's the right phraseology for the parking? Is it number of units? I don't want to say rooms if it's units.
Sleeping units.
Okay, and
So one of the completeness items that I flagged was, seem to recall that this event was the subject of a planning board application a long time ago. So I was asking for that, just to try and get an accurate parking count. So I took a stab at it just based on what the application said, it was 45 units. I assumed there was 1 sleeping room in each unit. So that's my estimation based on, in my chart. You've heard testimony that there's three-bedroom units in that rear section, that's shown in that picture or whatever, I can't read it. So it appears that my count is probably off by 6 spaces. So the requirement is probably 51 sleeping units plus the employee count, where there's 48. So there's probably an existing non-conforming situation with regards to parking. They're not eliminating any parking as part of these improvements. They're not increasing any rooms. It may be appropriate just to grant a parking variance.
I'm just, the only thing I'm thinking is, I have a vague I may be thinking of a different place. A lot of these kind of look a little bit alike. Were they before us previously? Not they, but was this property before us before? Because they may have gotten a variance and they're not non-conforming, they're exactly conforming.
Predated you by a lot. The last time they were here.
I could help with that. This document also says it was approved in 1994 by the Cape May Planning Board.
Well, I wasn't quite a lawyer yet. Okay, so,
That's about when he started.
Did you keep any notes?
well,
I was just going off memory. I just remember it being a board application.
I guess factually, can we just have some testimony whether they added any bedrooms? Were those always 3?
yeah, they were, yeah.
I don't think you want to testify to it, Mr. Neiman.
No, I'm not. I'm gonna call Mr. Reader.
Now, I'd be glad to testify. That was a pre-existing condition. We didn't change any of the bedrooms or, we didn't change any walls. We took them to the studs, but we didn't change any walls. We didn't change any sleeping rooms. So whatever was approved in 1994, that's exactly what was there. We just rebuilt it.
Well, that's slightly different. Do you know what was approved in 1994?
No, I have no idea what was approved in 1994.
What your testimony is that at the time you bought it, there was 3-bedroom townhouses, and that's what, after your renovations, there were 3-bedroom townhouses.
That is correct.
That's what you can testify to, basically.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
One minor question, my fellow board member mentioned this. Where's the pump room, the mechanism for this pool to operate it?
Where's
The
what? I'm sorry.
filters, the pumps for the pool, where are they?
Grab a microphone if you're going to.
Use,
They're right behind
wait, wait, wait. Here you go.
If we go back to Exhibit A1, you can see that's the pool equipment right there in that little shed.
And that's not being moved, that's remaining where,
Correct, correct. That's still there today. We made that much prettier.
So the only thing that we're left, Mr. Niemann, and I'm going to let you pick your poison, I guess, but I can't tell from the testimony if there was a prior variance granted for what sounds like a 3 or 6 spot deficiency in parking. So do you want us to consider the grant of a variance for those 6 spots, or what direction do you request we go in on that?
Well, I mean, I can tell you, I have the design architect here, Steve Tomasetti, and he can testify that we haven't changed anything. I mean, this is the way we found it. We haven't moved anything or modified anything. Steve, why don't you come forward and be sworn? Full name for the record.
Steve Tomasetti,
Spell your last name.
Tomassetti.
You're a registered architect in the state of New Jersey?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and you were the design architect for the renovations to this property?
Correct, yes.
Have any of the sleeping rooms been increased in number by any degree at all?
No, it was strictly an aesthetic renovation.
He
I'm
does.
sorry.
Sir, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, thank you. Was everything you said
Was
true?
the testimony?
Yes.
Was it answers to the questions you previously gave true under
Yes,
oath?
they are.
Okay, and were any new sleeping rooms created at all?
No.
And you saw the property when Mr. Mita bought it?
Correct, yes.
And the number of sleeping rooms has not changed at all?
Has not changed, nor has the number of parking spots.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think there's a presumption, I would respectfully urge, that a property that's been there for that long is lawfully existing. I mean, it's been there for years and years, and I assume it's had mercantile licenses all through the years. I mean, we assume that these are all lawfully existing. We don't know of any reason to believe that the prior owners had any violation notices served upon them by the city. So I would respectfully urge that it's an existing non-conforming condition.
I think the evidence is fairly overwhelming that it was functioning with this number of units and this number of parking spaces. So, I mean, there's like, as you know, there's only a couple of choices it can be. It can exist and pre-exist the ordinance, which I don't know that we have that testimony. It can be previously granted a variance, and therefore it is conforming, and it's not a problem, it has a variance, or it needs a variance. They're the 3 choices, so to speak. So, I don't want to make it more difficult, but I also want to give you the approvals you need. And
Well, I understand,
51
but-
units and 48 spaces, and then we don't give you a variance, I don't know what the,
I can represent, based on the testimony, that we haven't changed anything, and it's been there. I mean, I don't respectfully believe you need to show the document that grants the variance to show it's a non-conforming condition. I mean, we know that this sign, for example, has been at that corner and has had a 0-0 setback for decades. Okay, and I don't have the original approvals for it. It was built in the 1960s or something like that, when the original property was built.
I
So,
agree with you, but our testimony so far goes back 18 months. So I'm just, in terms of how long it's been, that number of bedrooms, the people here testified that's what it was when they did the renovations, but the testimony so far is that the renovations were done in 2022. So,
no. The renovations were done in 2022, in 2023, but the bedroom count hasn't changed at all.
okay, who testified to that?
Mr. Mita and Mr.
Mita, when was-
Tomasetti, the
well-
design engineer.
How long have you been familiar with the number of bedrooms in the property?
Well, during our due diligence period, obviously we counted the bedrooms and
Okay.
and we made sure that we got what they represented was in the hotel.
When was that?
That would have been in 2020, Trying to think, we ran it this summer of '22. This is, that would have been in '22.
Right.
Either way, it was a pre-existing condition, and it may have been improved in '94,
I
but,
understand. I mean, it's not like they made the building bigger. I mean, maybe the internal walls changed. It sounds to me like this has functioned with this number of parking spaces for a long time. So that I think if we take judicial notice of that, I mean,
I mean, if your position is that we should have some memorialization of it now so that it's memorialized going forward, we'll request the variance just to memorialize an existing condition.
I do, in my opinion, I haven't been the attorney since 1994, but when these things come in, I do like to have either the number of required parking spaces or a variance for the number of spaces you have, because when it comes in again, it's a mystery again, and you've never really gotten approved. So it seems to me, this is a good opportunity to get your parking solidified so it can't be questioned.
Then fine.
Later.
We
Yeah, I-
request that variance. Our respectful position is that it's an existing condition. It's been there for many years, and there's no, we're not exacerbating the demand. We're
Yeah, I mean,
leaving it as.
I agree, and I think there's no testimony that it's not functioning as it is. So, I mean, it would be it would start to sound arbitrary and capricious if all of a sudden this was a problem. So, but I do think if you have if you have an inadequate number of parking spaces for your use, you either got to show you have a variance or get a variance, or you're operating in the wind. So, this seems like the opportunity to get this thing locked in, and then when they come in, if they want to add something and they want to add another unit, or they want to put something above the ocean, and they say, we're approved for 45 with this number of units, we're adding 2 spaces, that'll be the number, and then everything follows from there. So let's get it right now, lock it in, and then when they do stuff later, they start from a legitimate spot.
that's exactly what happened with the Palace. When, the same thing, was a pre-existing condition, but the mercantile, number was different. So we memorialized it at that meeting too,
And we
of
did.
which you were the,
Maybe that's what I'm remembering. Was that the
Yeah.
Laguna Hotel?
that's exactly
Yes,
right,
at
yeah. Yeah.
Philadelphia Avenue.
Yeah.
That's what I remember. I was accused
That's
of.
exactly right.
And we got everything right then and got
We did.
all set, and then you start from here with a good base.
That's right.
Fine.
Yeah.
We'd make the request then.
Yeah, it's exactly what we did. Thank you.
Before you make that request, too, and I don't want to be difficult about this, but the issue raised in Craig's point number 10 on page 2 really addresses the discussion we're having here. I think we all want to make sure we're acting on a record of approvals. And parking could be the issue, but there's 2 other non-conforming aspects of this property.
Can you tell me again where you were talking about?
Number 10, it said the copy of resolutions from prior planning and zoning board applications, proof of the conditions have been a result of prior approval granted for the subject party have been fulfilled. And then Craig says,
Oh, I see.
this information must be provided or waived, request justified. The notion that 1984, parking was or was not addressed, but the pool is non-conforming too. And was there a resolution that authorized that?
I think it was 1994, I thought, was the testimony that somebody raised, was when the townhouses were built.
Right.
But that's, it's almost 30 years ago.
Exactly.
Can
yeah.
I say something,
And
Steve?
it's not-
Can I help you a bit?
Sure.
We actually have an ordinance that addresses this to some degree. The details of which are not fresh in my mind, and I'm not sure it applies to commercial properties. But we recognize that there is a problem with old resolutions in town.
Right.
And we can't always get our hands on them, and the applicant can't get them, or they'll ask for them, we can't find them. So what we did at one point is we actually have a ordinance that I wrote, and I don't claim it's artfully drafted, but I did my best. And it basically says things are so, the property is so old, and there's so many nonconformities, that if the nonconformity can be shown to exist for the last, I think it's 20 years or something, it's presumed to have been either granted a variance or grandfathered, and you kind of get a start from there.
Right.
So, this pool, it has to be more than 20 years old.
The pool predates the 94 application.
Yeah,
I reviewed aerial photographs, and the pool's been in place since at least the 1980s.
So I think,
Correct.
Yeah, and this is.
Mr. Mita testified that's the original pool for the original building.
I don't see this as these guys' problem. I think it's a problem of process. that we need to be comfortable moving forward, that we have facts. And the resolution, the ordinance you're talking about seems to solve that. If
It does, but I think it applies to residences. I don't know that it apply, but I'm not 100% sure about that. But as a matter of policy, I just want to say that the town has recognized that problem. And when things have been here for a long time, we kind of give it a presumption in some ways of validity. That's what Mr. Nemat is arguing. But I just want to point out that we have an ordinance that actually has put that policy as a matter of policy for the town. So, if they're not expanding the building, the fact that we don't have a perfect understanding of what bedrooms were in there at a certain time, this has functioned this way for a long time, so.
I can read your language if you would like.
It pains me to do it because I wasn't thrilled with it, but go ahead.
If there's an existing nonconforming structure on a nonconforming lot for which there is no evidence of a variance having been granted to permit such structure, and the applicant for development can demonstrate to the satisfaction of the zoning officer the nonconforming structure has existed in the same condition for a period of 20 years, and the building inspector is not aware or made aware of any notice of violation or other legal order having been previously issued for its removal or abatement, then the structure will be deemed a nonconforming structure on a conforming lot and proceed under subsection C above.
What's the
Can I
section
say
of the ordinance,
something?
Greg?
That's-
Greg,
I'm the
I've-
custodian of records for the planning board and the zoning board, and we do have files from 1995. We have older than that in the office. So if you know what year it was and you want to take a break, I could go look in the office. But nobody did an
Sure.
Open Public Records Act request for that, and
But we're allowed to request our own record, so we'd like to see the 1994 thing. If you can get it in the next 5 minutes, why not make it part of the record?
I'd be happy to do that. Is that the year?
94.
It was heard in
it's,
1994?
July 18th, 1994.
Okay, well, let's get that. Why not?
May I ask what you're reading from?
Your document, the one you sent us.
The rider attached to the,
What's that? Yeah, I think it's number 1.
I couldn't find that.
she may want to know, we have the resolution number here, too.
Oh, she just went in.
I'll take it.
Here, Rich, get that.
Oh, we're not going to help.
Greg, what section is that? Do you have it? 525-73? F is in Frank? Do you have it?
Yeah, there it is.
It's enlightening.
You have it?
It was that easy.
Flabbergasted.
Let's not applaud until we know what it says.
But you found it.
found it.
Just typed it up right now.
Oh, sure. I was still in high school.
Okay.
Was I there? Because I have memory of this.
Pizzare was chairperson.
Surprisingly.
All right. Okay, so I just want to get to the part that was the approval. The variances was a variance from section 19-26.3C for 3 spaces wherein 50 are required and 47 are proposed.
Did our formula change?
It probably did. But I think it's, and they actually talk about 3 living, how do they go to where they talk about the number of units? They say, Mr. Dwyer presented the application, which he explained as a preliminary site plan and variances for the Capri Motel, which is approximately 30-year-old beachfront motel sitting on a 37,784 square foot lot containing 38 motel units and living quarters. He indicated to the board that the applicants wish to enlarge the motel to incorporate a rear section and to expand to 44 motel units with living quarters and 3 apartments. He argued to the board that the applicants had not maximized the site. Indeed, the site currently consists of two three-story buildings and parking in 2 areas. So, Mr. Orlis, isn't that what they pretty much have now? Is it 44 motel units with 3 apartments? Is that what they?
Well, they're saying they have
Yeah, that would be
45 units, 3 of which are 3 bedrooms.
Correct.
And it sounded like you had 44 plus 3 apartments for a total of 47.
that would be a +6.
And how many parking spaces are required in your new calculation?
So it's based on sleeping rooms, sleeping units,
Sleeping room.
sleeping rooms. So it would be 45, so my calculation was 45 units plus 3 for the employees, give me 48. If you add another 6 bedrooms for the ones that I didn't count,
Yeah, you'd only had 4 bedrooms,
You only had 4 because you had 2 already.
because two are included in the
2.
count.
Yeah, you went from 2
I
to
got,
6.
no, there's 3, 6, 9, and I counted 3 of
It's
those.
4, then there's 2 up front. Did you say there was a 2-bedroom unit up front?
Right. 3, 6, 9, and I counted 3 the first time, so I think you should add 6 to that number, which is a obligation of 54 total, by my count.
I agree with your math.
This says 50 are required and 47 are proposed.
What does it say, Rich? I didn't hear.
50 are required and 47 are proposed.
Of course, I don't know what the
And they
requirement.
gave him a variance for 3 spaces.
Yeah, my suspicion is then,
The employee-
there wasn't anything for employees. and
The
it's based
employee
on-
counts was weird back then.
Yeah.
That's the only,
So, I mean, it sounds like what's there now is pretty much what was approved. I'm not sure that area up front that only has 2 spaces, but they're kind of humongous. I wonder if that was more back then. The
May have been, here,
handicap stuff.
I just sent Mark to count them, there's 48 spots. There's 48 parking spots.
Why are we being told 45 then?
What's that?
No, 48 parking spots, 45 rental units, but 48 parking spots.
Well, how many does Craig think there are? Are there 48 spots?
I counted 48 on their plan that they provided.
Okay.
And we just want, I just asked Mark to go count them, and I'm glad you came up with the same count. as
Well, I mean, I think we're dealing with 30-some years. I mean, I think the point is that it's really not much different than what's in here, and it's been 30 years. So, I mean,
Right.
it's not an outrageous deviation.
I think the parking variance is granted.
Yeah, it sounds like they granted a parking variance, whether it's the same exact variance they're seeking now, but it sounds like it was pretty close. We just can't tell if they counted in the same way. They also may have changed widths already.
But those would all be existing non-conforming conditions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the application still is going to have the 6 variances then?
Well, maybe it
But
may
it's-
only be 3. 3 were granted already, I mean, even under this old thing, the old.
But,
It probably, may not have been sleeping rooms then.
but the
Sleeping rooms now.
parking would be an ENC, an existing non-conforming
I
condition.
think he
like-
just granted to bring the history forward.
Yes,
Yeah, that's,
yes. And Mr. King, believe it or not, it was 7 years when we were in front of this board before, and it was the ordinance that you wrote that we cited, and in the non-conforming use of the palace, which is now Icona. So this,
yeah, I don't know if that was around then, I'm not sure. But I mean, look, I can't,
There's been lots of changes. We went
I'm
from,
not, I don't vote, and I've had 30 seconds with this 15-page resolution, but it just sounds to me like this is the same building, and it's not like there's less land, so there's probably the same number of parking spaces were there then. There's no testimony about any significant expansion since then. Really, I think what you're looking for in something like this is that they didn't just add a wing when no one was looking, and now it's a much bigger property with less parking. It sounds like it's the same building. Maybe there's an extra bedroom or something, who knows? You can't really tell from this resolution, but it sounds like it's been functioning this way for,
I would think there wasn't another bedroom. These units, You know, if we look at the Windrift and Avalon, we have a number of four-bedroom units that are 1,000 less square feet. This was way overbuilt size-wise for three bedrooms.
And there's always living rooms that they don't call bedrooms.
Yeah.
It's not the perfect measurement.
If you want to start picking hairs, you can.
Exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
it's very difficult, so.
I believe between that document and the testimony that we found it this way, I think it's reasonable to assume that this is lawfully existing. Oh, thank you.
We got to.
Oh, I don't dare take.
She's having it fixed. I took the original out. She's right.
All right, this-
I'm not allowed to have originals in my office.
That would be great. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions about that parking issue of me?
Does that document also include the pool non-conforming,
The pool existed when that application,
even before that?
That pool was there in the 60s.
that application was only for the rear addition, which is that back portion that's oriented towards New Jersey Avenue.
Yeah,
Right, that,
the townhouses.
that's what that application was for. That's my memory of that. So.
That's what it sounded like.
Yeah, we're calling them townhouses, they call them apartments.
Yeah. I'm not voting, but, I mean, I think that the point of this is, you're not going to get a perfect match from 1994 to now, and if we all sit down and really analyze it, I might find differences in the widths of parking, or the handicap requirement changed, or something that Craig said, but this just is not, this looks like the building has been the same as it was when it was approved, with a parking variance of 3 spots. Whether that matches perfectly with the way we measure them today, it looks to me like it's the same building with the same parking for 30 years. So, I mean, if, we're all for being careful about parking, but I don't know if this is where we're going to take our stand. I mean, this seems like, it doesn't seem like anything devious was done here. It sounds like they built what they said they were going to build. I don't know.
Okay. Moving on. Anybody have any more questions before Craig gives his report?
I am just going to mark that resolution as exhibit for the,
Yeah,
and I'll make it A7.
A7.
Actually, I'll make it B7 because we didn't do an Oprah request, but we're allowed to look at our own documents. So we'll make it B1, Board 1. That'll be our exhibit B1, okay? Sorry about that. And that's the resolution, the 1994 resolution. I think it's :2.
Okay. Mr. Hurlis, you ready?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to highlight and summarize my memorandum dated May 8th, 2023. This is an application located in the C3 Hotel Motel District. You've heard testimony from the applicant that they're essentially, the site improvements are proposed to construct a 15.2 feet by 70-foot pool deck expansion that's oriented away from Madison Avenue on the back side of the existing pool deck. A new 6 by 26 pool pergola that sort of sits over top of the pool, and new project signage. So with regards to my completeness review, we've already talked about item number 10 under the general requirements. That's the copy of the resolution. We have that now. Item 12 is the certified list. They have that on the plan, but the original was not provided, so we asked that that be provided, and that's been addressed. So we're dealing with the details required for preliminary site plan approval under section 3, and then turns to letters. 3V, there's an EIS that's required for any major site plan approval. The applicant has indicated that this is a New Jersey DEP authorization under permit by rule is applicable here. So I didn't see any reason that the site is developed. There's no known environmental issues here, so I supported a waiver from that. If the board members want to hear additional testimony from the applicant's professionals, they should ask for that, but I'm satisfied with that. Item number W, a traffic impact report. They asked for a waiver from that. I also supported that. What they're proposing is not a traffic generator. The streets are adequate for this, so there's no issues there. Under Y, the stormwater management report, I did recommend that that information should be provided as a condition of approval. We have a new adopted grading and stormwater management plan for minor applications. So anything that doesn't trigger major threshold, there's new requirements for that, so the applicant is required to comply with that as a condition of approval. And then finally, letters AA provide the site plan as a condition of approval, and that is to be provided in digital format. So based on that, I did recommend deeming the application complete. All right, the variances. So one thing they may have mentioned, or I may have just glossed over, the swimming pool expansion in the front yard. So swimming pools are not permitted in front yards, which means the face of the structure, between the face of the structure and the adjoining right-of-way, no pools are permitted in that area. So even if it's meeting this, so there's a requirement to meet the setbacks, there's a requirement for location, and none are permitted in the front yard. So this is an existing non-conforming situation with regards to the pool. They're not moving the pool, the pool's staying where it is, but our definitions and setbacks are measured to the pool and patio surround. So in this case, they're adding on to the patio, and that's a non-conforming situation. So, the building setback line along Beach Avenue, it is meeting the setback for the pool deck expansion, and that is going to be setback at the nearest location at 20.55 feet, but it's located between the building face and the front yard. So any expansion there is not permitted, so there's a variance necessary for that. The the accessory pool and pergola along Madison Avenue. So none of the expansion triggers any non-conforming situations with regard to the patio surround along Madison Avenue. However, the pergola has a setback of 14.86 feet, where 20 foot is required. So there's a setback variance for that. Okay, so those are the setback issues with regards to the two streets and in the front yard. The lot coverage requirement is 75%, 77.14% exists, 77.08% is what's proposed. Still non-conforming, it's slightly less, so they've bettered that situation, but there's still a variance necessary. We talked about the parking. I think based on our conversation, we're at 51 sleeping units, plus 3 employees, gives us a total of 54 required parking spaces, where 48 exist and 48 are proposed. So there's no impacts to the existing parking, but there's an existing nonconformity, and we're going to treat that and treat that as a variance that's not being exacerbated by this application. Okay, signage. So there's a variance requested for the area of signage. The maximum permitted is 20 square foot per face. The existing is 37.8 square foot per face, and they're proposing 32 square foot per face. The setback requirement is 20 feet, 0 foot is proposed, and that 0 foot is existing. The frame width maximum is 5 feet, where 6 foot is existing and the 8 foot is proposed. And you've heard testimony with regards to that. And that signage is also proposed in our clear sight triangle. So there's a variance necessary for that. In those instances, we look at traffic safety. In this case, we have Madison Avenue, which is extremely wide right away. It's 80 foot wide. And Beach Avenue is 102 feet wide. So when you have those street geometrics, typically you don't have sight issues. And I always recommend and request of the applicant to provide what is the modern day standard for traffic safety at intersections. It's the AASHTO sight triangle standards. And that's based on the geometrics of the street as well as the speed limit. And they provided that on the plan, and you can see that on their site plan. And you can see that that does not fall within the property. And in my opinion, I think they've demonstrated that signage in the clear sight triangle will not cause traffic safety issues there. So I'm satisfied. I think you can grant a variance from that and feel safe that you're not impairing the public safety. Okay, so that was a summary of the variances. I believe there's 7. 6 that are listed on page 4 of 6 of my report, as well as the 7th for the parking. Moving on to page 5 of 6, these are the general review comments. These should be standard conditions of any approval that the board grants. We've asked them to revise the zoning table to reflect comments in the review memo. The applicant is required to provide an ADA-compliant ramp for the pool deck access, so we just asked to see some additional grades to satisfy that. 3, I mentioned, but the applicant must comply with the new stormwater ordinance, which is ordinance number 485, 2022, which is our stormwater management and grading requirements. Pool safety fence has been indicated on the plans as per our request in item number 4, so that has been addressed but remains a condition of approval. 5 is our standard condition that they have to get the landscaping and vegetation plan approved by the construction and zoning official. We did not take any issues to what they've proposed. 6 is our standard condition that sidewalk adjacent to the subject site is going to be replaced to the satisfaction of the board engineer. 7 is the standard condition that they have to furnish and provide the performance guarantee and inspection escrow for the site plan improvements. 8 is tying those improvements to a satisfactory inspection prior to them being issued a CO. 9 is compliance with the recommendations and requirements of the Cape May Fire Department, Police Department, Public Works Department, Environmental Commission, and Shade Tree Commission. We did receive reports. The Environmental Commission dated May 26, 2023, approved with the following conditions. We strongly suggest using different landscape plants that are seaside, natives, and drought tolerant. Resources can be found at www.jerseyyards.org. Cape May Fire Department recommended approval dated 5/19/23 with no comments. The Police Department recommended approval dated 5/10/2023 with no comments. Cape May Public Works Department recommended approval dated 5/11/23 with no comments. And the Shade Tree Commission recommended approval with the following conditions. Existing landscaping is to remain, and that was dated 5/9/23.
If I may, for the record, the landscaping is being put in today, and our client did consult that list, and they put in drought-tolerant and indigenous plant materials from the list. Is that correct, Mr. Mita?
Revise our plans to match.
So you feel confident that you can meet those? Okay.
Yes,
Perfect.
that's been done.
Environmental Commission thanks you.
Okay, the remainder are standard conditions, comply with all other state, county, local approvals. You have to get final HPC approval, and we talked about the sign materials. Item number 12 is to comply with the applicable affordable housing requirements at the time of approval or issuance of building permits as applicable. And finally, if the board grants approval, the applicant is required to revise the plan that satisfies all conditions of approval and submit 6 sets of compliance plans to the board engineer for review. Happy to answer any board questions.
I have a couple. Go back to the pergola for a second. The pergola, according to the plans, the street side base of the pergola sits on the deck of the pool, correct? Correct. Now, how wide is that deck currently?
For you, let's look at the site plan.
What's the question? What's the question?
How wide is the deck?
No, but what's the issue?
Deck in relation to where the pergola is.
18 feet less. 13 feet, so about 5 feet,
5 feet?
correct. 5 foot and change.
And so the schematic for the pergola base looks like it takes up almost all of the deck on the street side. And I'm just wondering, Craig, if there's any sort of regulation that covers this kind of a situation in terms of safety, passage.
A zoning
Accessible.
regulation?
It's not a zoning regulation, it would be a construction code requirement, and then when they submit their building plans, it would be reviewed by the construction department.
Okay. So, but conceivably, there could be some problems with the structure of the pergola if the construction office doesn't think that's a safe.
We'll review it. Our architect will review it. Steve?
Yeah, the pergola overlaps up high, but between the fence and the support system, there's going to be 3+ feet, 3.5 feet, which is usually compliant corridor, aisleway, and pass-through. So there should be plenty of room
So as you're pointing to the street side base of the pergola,
right here.
and the distance between that and the fence is going to be 3 feet?
No, on the other side, I think you said.
Oh, this side. Yeah, there's a room to walk past the structure between the fence. Free movement on that side without any safety concerns, and it should be compliant with all.
And we have no
Building
zoning
variances.
ordinances that govern the size of decks around pools.
It governs the setbacks for those
Right.
associated
Not
patios,
the-
decks around.
Not the apron or whatever they.
Doesn't set a minimum size or anything like that.
The next question I had was about the sign, and on your plan, on the site plan, in the corner of the property where the sign is, there's a notation that says clear site intersection triangle. And then there's also the triangle that Craig describes, which is out in the street, correct? Craig?
The ASHTO site triangle.
Yeah. So what's the difference? That sign's in what you would indicate would be a clear site intersection triangle.
That note which you just read was the site triangle prescribed by your ordinance. The one that you see that is within the roadway of Madison and Beach Avenue is the ASHTO site triangle, the one that is a more modern way of establishing clear sight lines.
All right, so the corner one that you've put in your plan, that's from our ordinances.
That's correct.
That's what they need a variance from. And to justify that, I asked them to put the ASHTO one, which is the one that falls outside in the Beach Avenue and Madison Avenue right-of-way.
So our ordinance 5525-57 indicates that nothing in that particular site triangle can be above 2.5 feet or below 10 feet. And the variance is, they're asking a variance to waive that, to remove that requirement.
They need a variance from that. They really didn't provide testimony, I sort of did.
We are asking that you apply the more modern standard, which most municipalities do, particularly in urban environments. As Mr. Hurlis well knows, it's called the ASHTO, American Association of State Highway Transportation Officials. That's their standard, and that is generally accepted in the profession.
That's the one that's out in the street.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
All right, so you want to waive this
I want to
requirement?
grant a variance from that.
Yeah, quite a variance, yeah. So there will be a fairly large obstruction within that.
It's already existing. I'm unaware of any traffic issues there. One of the things as a designer, when I'm dealing with site triangles, when you have that greater right-of-way widths, you have more room, and typically you do not have site issues with those types of road designs. So in this case, I don't anticipate any issues there.
Okay,
And to further reinforce that, Beach Avenue is a county road and subject to county site triangle requirements, and they adopt the ASHTO site triangles that we're presenting. So what we're presenting, while it requires a variance for your ordinance, is entirely consistent with what the county would require
okay.
and will require.
And the last comment I had was, and this may actually be able to help you a little bit, and I may stand corrected on my math, but in reviewing your site plan, you're showing 49 parking spaces. And if you look up under the townhouse section, the second column of parking spaces, you say it's 10, but it's actually 11 spaces in there.
No, forgive me, the last one, one more northward, is actually part of the drive aisle. The dashed line that looks like it forms a parking space is actually the outline of the building above.
Well, which one, the third in from the street?
Let me refer to the site plan.
Here it is here.
I'm referring to Exhibit A5 now. Is this the space that you're considering to be a parking space?
Well, why don't you come over here and let me just show you this, so that,
You want to take this with you?
here, here.
Here's his.
Thank you. Yes, that's not a space. That's part of the drive aisle. The dash line makes it look like it might be a space, but that's the building outline
All
above.
right, good, okay. Then you can't have the extra space. That's all I have.
Anybody else have any questions? I don't see anybody in the public, so we don't have to open it up to the public.
For the record, should show.
Yeah, you have to open it up.
Okay, I'm opening it up to the
Opening
public.
close.
Seeing no one, closed. Yes?
That's fine.
Okay. You want to,
Unless there's further discussion, I'll suggest a motion to be made. Perfect. The motions you make are up to you, and how you vote is up to you. The motion I'd recommend being made, and we always make them in the affirmative, is a motion to grant preliminary and final site plan approval, as well as variances 1 through 6 listed on the engineer's report on page 4, as well as a variance 7 for parking, which I believe is 48 spaces where 54 is required, subject to the waivers and conditions as outlined by the board engineer on the record. The variances, to my understanding, are being sought under the C1 and C2 standards. C1 resulting from the existing location of the pool, so that the patio would necessarily be next to that pool as the location where it would be. And also under the C2, for the reasons outlined by the board, by the applicant's engineer with the purposes of zoning, including the aesthetic improvement of the building as a whole and the lack of negative impact on the zone plan, zoning ordinance, and the neighborhood. Those are the motions, that's the motion I'd recommend being made, but how you vote is up to you. This will require a simple majority, as there are no D variances requested. Does anybody have any questions? Okay.
anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make the motion.
And I'll second it.
Thank you. We have a motion by Mr. Gorgon, seconded by Councilmember Yeager. Mr. Gorgon?
Yes.
Mayor Mullick?
Yes.
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Mrs. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Crowley?
Yes?
Mr. Produces?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Mayor, council members of the board, thank you very much. I can tell you that Mr. Mita and his company look forward to remaining responsible corporate citizens in your community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Alberto.
Do we have a motion to adjourn? Anyone? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.